Hey everyone, this is Coach Phoenix.
And I'm Coach Gina.
And this is Toast with the Coaches. Cheers.
Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Perspective, the show where we drink and talk about life, the universe, and all that other jazz.
And again, I'm Coach Phoenix, founder and CEO of Role Model Life Coaching. At Role Model Life Coaching, we partner with our clients to help them navigate down the road of life towards their model self.
I am Gina Erickson, a certified life coach and founder of Clear Focus Coaching. At Clear Focus Coaching, we specialize in boundaries coaching and women empowerment. To find out more, check out the link below or visit clearfocuscoaching.com.
So at this time, I would like to raise a toast. I would like to raise a toast for a female badass, a Marine veteran, former NSA employee, a journalist, Dungeons and Dragons master, self-proclaimed chef and baker, Minneapolis owned, the courageous Meg Niemer. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you for joining us this evening, Meg. It is so nice to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited for our conversation, and I think it'll be really great.
Absolutely. Meg, thank you. Thanks for joining us. First off, I would like to say thank you for your service, seriously.
Thank you.
Even though you was a Marine or Army, I definitely want to thank you for your service. So welcome.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cheers to that. I don't have any stake in either of those areas of service. So I would just thank both of you and call it good.
Yeah,
okay. I mean, the Marine Corps is obviously the best, so
that's what she said. But over here, I'm definitely gonna go with the Army, But either way, you're a badass, and I just want the audience to get a better understanding of who Meg is. So, Meg, let's just jump right into it. Who is Meg, and describe your experiences?
Yeah, so I guess I can give a rundown real quick of where I've been, what I've done.
Talk about it.
Yeah, so I grew up in Dubuque, Iowa, actually, which is it's not really remote. It's one of the bigger cities in Iowa, but once you're there, it's not really big. So, but growing up, we were like, oh, we're from the city, it's really cool in Iowa here. So I grew up in a very conservative household. And the entire time I was growing up, I felt this drive. I was like, I know that there's more to life outside of Dubuque, Iowa, right? And I just kept thinking, I was like, you know what? I just have to find out what it is. I have to find it. And I joined the Marine Corps when I was 19. Wow. It was actually kind of a weird way for me to join. I was thinking about the service for a little bit. I had signed one of those things in high school where they're like, are you interested in the service? And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. You can, call me or something. And the Marine Corps actually called me right as I was getting home from work one day. And I ran inside and I picked up the phone. I was like, this is Megan. Can I help you? Niemer residence, whatever. And they were like, oh, we're from the Marine Corps. Would you like to stop by and talk to us? And I didn't know what the Marine Corps was. So I had seen the commercials on TV, right? I knew what the Army was and the Navy and the Air Force, but I didn't know what the Marines were. And they are a part of the Navy. And they're sort of like a very specialized, defined service, right, within the Navy. And so I was like, sure, I'll come down and talk to you. They immediately sold me on it. I was like, that sounds awesome. They were like, you want to be the best, right? And I was like, I want to be the best. They were like, we'll let you go places. And I was like, I want to go places. So this is sounding good. And they were like, and you get to, give back to your country. And I was like, well, I'm really glad that I get, a good education and, I'm an equal here in America, which is not everywhere in the world. And I was like, absolutely, I'm going to do it. Nobody in my family really believed me for a while. So they were like, you're joining the Marines? Yeah, sure. Okay. And finally, on the day that my mom was driving me down to the airport, I think it hit her, right? And she was like, oh my God, you're joining the Marines. And I was like, yes, I am. I've been training for the last, 7 months. That's what I'm doing. And I think it like hit her all of a sudden. She's like, oh my God, I can't believe this. And I was like, well, it's time for me to get on a plane. So I'll talk to you on the phone.
It's real now.
Yeah, I was like, no time like the present. But so that's how I got in. But it was really a great experience. I served 5 years. So typically you serve 4. But because I was a signals intelligence Marine, there's like an extra year of schooling that you have to go in. And so then they make you sign on for 5 years if you want that specific MOS, which is your specific job.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that was really interesting. So I spent my first year in school learning all about signals intelligence and what that can do. And then I got stationed at Fort Meade, Maryland afterwards and worked for the NSA for a bit. And I deployed in 2015 to Afghanistan, which was really cool as well. And then I decided that 5 years I had learned so much and there was so much more I wanted to do that I was going to get out and try living life in the civilian world. And I've been moving around and doing stuff since then. And it's been really exciting.
Wow. That's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Talking about a badass. So Meg, really quickly, I just want to know about, you touched on being in the NSA, but then were you in the Marines and then you got out of the Marines and went into the NSA, or was when you got stationed at Fort Meade, was your assignment under the NSA command?
Good clarification. Yes, I was in the Marine Corps while I was working for the NSA. The NSA has they call it like a joint task force, right? Which is you have civilians and contractors working for them as well as military personnel so that you get like a very rounded opinion, right? Like you have a lot of people with different skills there. And there's a lot of different things that people can bring to the table. So they do have certain amounts of each service that they would like to be working there at any given time. And so I was one of those numbers from the Marine Corps that got to work in that building for a little bit. And I got to deploy with them as well. So it was really cool.
That's awesome. I want to travel back in time a little bit to when you were 19. And you got this call. So was the plan for you, like you said that you had signed up in high school and stuff, was the plan to go into the Army or the Marines, or were you, planning to, I don't know, become like a graphic designer or an auto mechanic? Like what were you thinking at that time?
Good question. I did not have a plan. And that's one of the big reasons that I joined. I was looking for stability. I was looking for, what am I supposed to do? Everyone in Dubuque, Iowa stays in Dubuque, Iowa. And if you leave, you never hear from them again. And so I didn't really have anyone that I could talk to about what life was like outside of that state. We had traveled to Chicago a couple of times, we had gone up to Minneapolis once or twice, but we really didn't know what it was like to live in another city, in another culture, in another, anywhere in the world. Right. And so I think, I had done like a year of college leading up to this. I had gotten out of high school, right? And then when I was 18, I was doing a year of college and I was like, it just doesn't feel right. And I was running through scenarios in my head. What would my life be like if I did this? What would my life be like if I joined the military? And I think it was that phone call that just really solidified. I was like, oh, there is an opportunity for me to do this. I should probably take it. And I did. And it was awesome. So.
I want to fast forward again and go to your experience with the NSA. So for dumbasses like me, right? Because I don't know what the fuck the NSA is. Only thing I know the NSA to be is associated with like tapping people's phones, I believe. And had like a whistleblower. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's the only thing I could recall when I think of the NSA. But for people like me, what is the NSA? Like, what does it stand for? And like, what is the mission?
Yeah, so everything you listed is what people usually think of when they hear the NSA, so it's not just you. The NSA stands for National Security Agency. So they are tasked with securing our nation. They do that by collecting information. And I can't go into this too much, but they do a lot of behind the scenes, making sure that our security is there. And so it actually really changed warfare overseas. Signals intelligence is a big thing because prior to SIGINT really becoming its own, like we have our own MOS now, our own school code. We have our own way of helping the troops on the ground. And before that happened, people would needlessly lose their lives. So signals intelligence is all about being able to prepare your troops for the best avenue, the safest avenue, and being able to protect the people that need to be protected. And that includes civilians as well, right? And so the NSA sort of helps monitor a whole bunch of different situations across the globe, but they're really tasked with making sure that the nation is secure. So
that's intense.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you for that. Now, I feel so much more educated and well-rounded when it comes to the NSA. So thank you for that tidbit.
Yeah, for sure.
Can I ask too, you've mentioned your specialty, the signals intelligence. What is signals intelligence? Because I'm not going to lie, when I think of signals intelligence, I think of like someone with a white flag, like doing different like signs and stuff. Like that's what's coming to my brain right now.
Yeah, no, it's collecting information. So that could be online. That could be, it's not tapping into people's phones unless it's like a really.
When you say collecting information, I'm like, how are you collecting information? Are you like?
I'll give you an example, and this is a personal experience, so I can 100% talk about it. Kind of a scary thing. So I do not have social media. From what I learned working for the NSA and for the Marine Corps, not that social media is bad. It's just that you can find out so much from anybody with a Google search or just having Facebook. To put that into perspective, so my friend and I were visiting Minneapolis before I lived here. We were visiting a friend of ours who lived here. And she had to go to work during the day, and I was going to go pick up our other friend at the airport. And I drove there, and I got to the airport and picked up my friend, and we were about to drive back, and I was like, oh shit, I didn't get our friend's address. I have no idea where we're staying. And she's somewhere like in North Minneapolis, I think, which is further away from the airport, for those of you who don't know. And I was like, I don't know how to get back. And she wasn't answering her cell phone. And we were like, well, we don't want to just sit here. So we went on Facebook, and I knew that her house was close to her children's school. And we found a photo of her children, and we saw the school name, looked up the school on Google, and found our way to her house, which we had full permission to like be there, right? And we're Facebook friends and everything. But that's just to show you like what you do with social media. Like I found her house within a minute of looking on Facebook, which is scary.
That's interesting.
Yes, kind of weird. But working for the NSA is really all about making sure that you're monitoring what's going on in the world, on open sources as well, so that you can really nail down, what might impact your nation, what might impact what you're trying to do, the security of anything involved. So I don't know if that answered the original question.
Yeah, absolutely.
And some.
This is, I have so many questions that I'm struggling to pick just one. The one that I want to choose though is, when you first went into the Marines, being female, did that give you any pause at all? Because I know that there's kind of been a back and forth about, the military being accepting of females or like treating them well and stuff. Like, as far as I know, it's gotten a lot better, but there has been kind of back and forth. Like, did that impact you or give you pause at all?
It didn't impact my original decision, but I do have a lot to say on that subject. So right before we came on this podcast, actually, I asked my friend, who I still am really good friends with in the Marine Corps. She's currently in the Air National Guard. She transferred over. And I called her and I was like, hey, if you were to talk about being a female in the Marines, what would you say? And she said exactly the first thing that I thought of when you originally asked me to be on the show. And I said, It's really awesome, but it's really, really hard because you have to prove yourself and your worth every single day that you're there. And there's no breaks. You are always held to a higher standard. You always have to be the better person. You might not be as fast or as strong as the men in your unit, so you need to be smarter and you need to be more personable. And that's how you get through it, unless you are an awesome female beast, because now, as of 2016, women are able to enter every single MOS in the Marine Corps. They're able to be in combat. They're able to hold combat jobs. And it's awesome that they're putting women through there. I think that's fantastic. So, yeah. But it's a challenge in and of itself to just be a woman in the Marine Corps, not let alone being in the Marines, you know.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have traded the experience for anything. So
let's stick on that subject. So now that you went through that and you say, you know what, it was hard, but I got through it. How do that affect you now being a civilian? Do you think they have do you have a extra, like a edge on your counterpart that's a civilian because of what you experienced as a woman in Marine?
I don't know if I have a leg up or anything, but I definitely have a unique perspective. Perspective being, you know, everything we're talking about.
Talk about it.
The thing that I really have gotten out of it is I know who I am more today than I did when I was 19 going in originally, right? So it's really helped me define my own personal values. It's helped me find my voice. I will stand up for myself now. I don't let people walk all over me, right? But when I originally enlisted and I was 19, 20 years old, I said things that I don't necessarily agree with now, but I think it's been great to see myself change. And I feel like I've really come to understand more about myself and what it means to actually be a woman, which is awesome, right? And I'm really all about that female empowerment now. And I think it just goes to show that the military has a long way to go to work for equality. In the Marine Corps, they have a saying, they call it the old Corps versus the new Corps, which is about the time, I think it was like early 1990s is when that shift sort of happened. The old Corps is very masculine. You know, only men should have certain MOSs. You know, women are lesser. They have lesser standards. We should not, expect as much out of them. Whereas the new Corps is, a lot of my friends embodied the new Corps. I had a lot of male friends and they all treated me as an equal, right? And so I'm very grateful that I was stationed with such wonderful people. But I think the new Corps is really taking its hold. And, you know, now that women can be in combat and they can hold those positions, everything's open, right? Like there's no limit that we can't reach. And I think every other woman who enters the Marine Corps adds a positive influence, right? And they can educate the men that they're stationed with on what it means, because we can do everything. You know, if we maintain, you know, the same standards, we go through the same boot camp. Now, the Marine Corps is the only organization that separates their boot camp. So females have a separate boot camp experience than the males, but we get the exact same training. We just
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're the only service that does that. So
why is that?
So there's a lot of historical. The Marine Corps is the most old-fashioned part of the military, I would say.
So tradition.
Yes, tradition is what they stick with a lot. And that's both a good thing to think about is tradition, right? Is respecting our past and where we came from. But sometimes it's good to move past tradition and progress forwards. So I think sometimes they get that a little confused still. But women all go to Parris Island. There's 2 Marine Corps boot camp stations, and the other's in California. And the men are split along the Mississippi, actually. So if you're living in Illinois, you'll go to Parris Island, South Carolina. And if you're living in Iowa, as a man, you will go to California. But all women in the United States who want to join the Marine Corps go to boot camp in Parris Island. So, but you get the exact same training, except there's a couple of other things, right? Like your female drill instructors will teach you how to do your hair differently, right? Because their uniform is always pristine. And the Marine Corps really likes to pride themselves on looking better than the other services. So, but they teach
y'all try your best. Y'all try your best.
Yeah, we succeed most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, who's the audience, right? Who's the judges? I don't know them.
From where I'm sitting, you both look great, so I think they've succeeded.
No, we appreciate everybody in the other services as well. So,
Phoenix, I actually want to throw this back over to you, kind of based on your experience from the other side, being a male in the service. Do you feel, from your perspective, that females were treated any differently in your battalion? Did you serve with females?
Okay, so that's an interesting question, especially for me, because originally, so the first 6 years of my service, I did not serve with females. I was in combat arms, so it was prior to, like Meg said, in 2016, where I was a field artillery soldier, and it was a male only MOS. So I went to boot camp. And I went to my AIT. It was all together. It was called OSET, one station unit training. It was all together, lumped in at Oklahoma, and it was male only. And then for the next 6 years, I was only around males. When I deployed, they call it hard dick and bubble gum, just straight men. So
wow.
in my unit, so say in my unit, you have a headquarters, and then you have 3 other battalions. So you have like an Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, right? And Delta was like another, it was like in headquarters, but it was like another MOS that was specifically support of the main line, which was Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie. So in headquarters, you had some cooks, and 3 of the cooks out of, say, 70 was female. But we never, when I say we, the main line, so the gun bunnies, the ones that actually like in the fight, we never seen like the headquarters, so we never seen the women. So it was always for 6 years, even when I deployed, you see them in passing, but you never really had contact. However, fast forward, went to college, became an officer, went back into the military, didn't go combat arms, went into support. I was logistics quartermaster, so that was similar to like supply chain. There, I was in charge and I led women. So from a leadership standpoint, personally, I ain't give a fuck if you was white, black, female, male. I just need you to do a job. If you do a job, I like you. If you don't do a job, you a shit. And I don't care what you got between your legs. And that's how I feel most people I work with, they felt the same way. So if you couldn't carry a slack, we want to hear that shit. Like, you're a woman, we don't know, or you're a man. If you're a man, and if you're a man and your woman is outperforming you, we're going to give him shit. But a woman for now outperforming, for me personally, it was like, if you perform or you don't perform. But we did say if any man wasn't performing on the level of a woman, he got more shit than anybody. I could say that.
That's interesting. That's really interesting that you were there for 6 years and didn't serve with anyone.
6 years, without women. Yeah. And then the last 4 years, the leg of it, I led women and men. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
So Meg, from the
back on you.
Yeah, from the leadership perspective that you had, did you see a lot of females, other than like once you got out of boot camp and you went through that training, were there a lot of females that were leaders in the Marines, or was that primarily men as well?
It's mostly men. I mean, in the Marine Corps, 8% of the Marine Corps is women. And so that's really, really low, right? And so it's rare to come across a couple in a unit. My unit did have I think we had about 10 women at one time. And that was like a lot. We were like, oh my God, we could make our own whole platoon of women. It would be awesome, you know? But that was also partially because of my MOS, which you have to meet specific requirements. And a lot of women really study and try hard because, you know, that's one of the legs up that you can have. And so for the Signals Intel MOS, you have to meet a specific standard on your ASVAB, the basic test that you take before the Marine Corps. But there were a few women in leadership positions. I think I was maybe directly under one of them at one point in time. Other than that, we had a female major visit our base once, sort of to do like a, hey, I'm stopping by, this is like an inspection, let's talk for a little bit. But other than that, it was mostly men in leadership positions. However, I was a sergeant as well. And so at one point I was in charge of our casuals platoon, which is, let me back up for a second. So I didn't do signals intelligence the entire time. I did signals intelligence for the first 2 years that I was in, which that first year was schooling. And one of the main things that I really learned to talk about was mental health, which is a huge realm in and of itself within the military, right? Like there's so much work that we can do, but it doesn't get talked about enough. And so that's one of the things that I really learned about was how to talk about it. And that's what, I like to add in. And so if you don't mind, I'm going to shift a little towards the mental health perspective.
Yeah, hold on, Meg. I got a question for that. And I'm big into that as well. Someone that suffered some trauma when I was deployed, and I have PTSD as well. But as far as mental health, and you mentioned it not being talked about within the Marines, and I could say in the Army it's the same way. And I know it wasn't spoke about mostly in the Army because we felt, especially as leaders, so the higher ranking you get, you feel like you can't speak about it because one, how can you lead soldiers who's going through these issues if you have these issues? So I can't talk about it. And you can't really lead if you have PTSD or you have other mental health issues because people start to question your judgment as a leader. So then you hide those issues as well. For the Army, I can't speak for the Marines. So my question I shift to you is, what are the reasons you feel like those mental health issues cannot be spoke about in the Marines?
Coming from a leader, you are not the first person to tell me something like that. But I think the people who have PTSD, the people who have been through some things, those are the people who should be leading because you can lead with empathy and you know what it's like to feel the things that the people you're leading are going through, and so I think those are the perspectives that we need out of our leaders are the people who have been through it, who can help us. One of the things that I notice the most, though, is it's mostly in the lower ranks where people will mention it, but then they shy away from it, right? And you don't really hear it from on top. But in the Marine Corps, they did start mandating every 3 months you have to go through a training. And so it's a huge, they call it death by PowerPoint. And it's just a bunch of PowerPoint slides.
Yeah.
But they started putting in a mental health one, and they didn't really call it mental health. They called it suicide awareness, which title is terrifying. Why would you call it that? Mm-hmm. It is bringing recognition to something, but that's a really bold way to do it. And mental health is not something to just throw out there, right? It's something that you want to lead with a little bit of grace.
No, and I agree with you, Meg, because if you throw it out there like suicide awareness, automatically have a defensive because in the military, so suicide is weak. And in the military, no matter male, female, black, white, you have to be strong. You're a soldier, you're a Marine, you're a sailor, etc. So if you put something suicide awareness, I'm already turned off because suicide, I'm never going to do that. So I'm not listening to the underlying message like Meg said. But if I say, hey, mental health awareness, and the reintegration training. So, Gina, when you return from Iraq, Afghanistan, any deployment, especially a combat situation, you go through something called reintegration training. And they did add in and doing a better job at reintegration training as far as putting things like mental health, PowerPoints and slides and classes, having a counselor available, letting soldiers know like, hey, if you have these type of symptoms, please tell your leadership. So they are trying to add things to it. But I think what Meg's saying, and I agree with you, Meg, is it's being like downplayed and more of a check the box rather than, hey, really listen to this information?
That's exactly what happens. It's usually, they have to meet a quota. They have to say that they went through all of these trainings. And it's not just suicide awareness. They have trainings they have sexual assault training, which is the actual title of a training. And they have like all of these titles, which are really, they pop, right? But not in a good way.
Yeah.
And it is good information if you actually pay attention to it. But that's the thing is, as soon as people see that title, they're like, oh, this again. And then they pretend like they're not interested, even though they might be. And even though they might be looking for resources, they're already tuning out because everyone else around them is looking at each other like, are you paying attention? I don't know. Am I? And so, but if you actually pay attention to the training, it is done in a really, they do have a lot of really good information in there. And part of it is recognizing signs of mental health issues or, something that's not, if your friend needs help, there are different ways that you can identify that. And so they teach you those things. Maybe your friend has been spending more time in their room. Maybe they decided to take their lunches to go, things like that. If they're not being as sociable, if their habits are changing. And then they always encourage, they're like, reach out to your friend, just hang out with them. Even if you don't want to talk about it, have them do something with you, like go for a hike or something like that off base, get off base, get away from it, go out in nature. And so some of the content is really good, but they're not, at least when I was in, they weren't presenting it in the best way possible. Yeah. I don't know if it's changed since then, but that's definitely one of the things. But back to me working in the NSA. So I had worked there for about a year in that building, which it is stationed. So Fort Meade is both a military, it's an Army base, and the NSA is on the other side. So we slept in the barracks on the other side of base, and then in the morning we would drive over to the NSA, and we were all right there together. But it was a really stressful job. It was probably one of the most stressful jobs I will ever hold in my life.
Why?
A lot of the stuff that you work on depends on whether the lives of your brothers and sisters, whether they get to continue living, right? If you make a mistake, it could cost troops their lives. If you don't find information, if you don't prepare them the best, you could have saved somebody, right? So there's a lot of that goes on, and there's a lot of guilt attached to it. And I had served a year in there, and I finally hit my limit, and it was the middle of the day, and I had a complete breakdown in the NSA.
Good. So this is after your deployment?
No, this was before my deployment.
So you didn't leave after you had the breakdown. Okay, good.
No, but I completely had a breakdown, and I was like, I just can't do this specific job. And it was a Navy petty officer, so not even another Marine Corps guy, because you're joint service, which just means there's people from every military service that is working with you. And he was like, hey, let's take a break. I'm going to go take you to talk to somebody. And it was the first time I had ever been to therapy, right? Which was actually a really great experience, being able to talk to somebody about it, because they do have specific staff that you can talk to, who it gets around the security clearance thing, right? Like they have their own mental health professionals there. And that was like a really eye-opening experience. And I think the person who brought me there was one of the sort of like an angel, right? If you think of them that way. Because they didn't hold any judgment for me. They had watched me break down, and they just said, I'm going to take you to get some help. And they got me some help, and I was able to carry on from there. After that, though, they did pull me out of that position because I requested it, right? I did not want to work it anymore. And I worked at the company office for a little bit. I was the company clerk. And then I wanted to deploy again as a logistics manager, which you were Phoenix, it sounds like, or something to do with logistics. And so then I deployed as a logistics manager for the NSA. So I was monitoring their equipment, not doing the work that the equipment was used for itself. So
Got you. So what was that experience like being deployed? Do you have any stories? Have you been through any like chaotic or life-threatening experiences?
Luckily, I never saw combat. I'm very thankful for that. However, obviously we're prepared to do whatever it takes, right? So, but luckily I didn't have to run into that situation. However, I was stationed mostly on Bagram Airfield, which is the big base. Yep. And I did a couple of other missions elsewhere. So I went to a couple other bases there. Most of it was really great. I was the only female on my team to deploy. And I was in charge of this whole warehouse of stuff. So I got to drive around giant all-terrain forklifts, which was really fun. I got to
nice.
LMTV, which is like a big up armored vehicle, right? That you put like airstrip packages on. And that was really cool. The only things that so there's perks to being the only woman, right? So I got my own room, which is great. And I don't know, it was really fun. I got deployed with a bunch of really good guys. They were really awesome. I mean, we treated each other like siblings. So that was cool. There were a couple of times where I was really afraid though. Back to the mental health thing, right? I mean, when you're on Bagram Air Force Base, once the spring rolls around, because there's not a whole lot of shelling that happens in the winter, but you'll take fire on the base a few times a week. Sometimes it's every day. And that's just, they incoming. And then they'll say IDF impact, and then you have to find cover and you have to put on your body armor. And then you hope that you're
run to the bunkers.
Yep. Run to the bunkers. And then you just listen to the booms. And then eventually after a while, they're like, okay, everything's fine. And you're like, all right, carry on with the day. But after a while, that does really take a toll, right? When you think about it, there's someone out there who is actively trying to end your life.
Yo, Meg, hold on.
Yeah.
So it's funny because as you said it out loud, I had it so now for me, that was everyday normal life, right? But now I get to listen to someone else say it. And so I'm outside of my own body and I'm listening, right? And that shit sound pretty wild because you said it shit kind of calm, then, we have incoming and we go to the bunkers. Like you said it real casual. And that shit's not okay. That shit's kind of wild because think about normal life. Nobody's running to a bunker or had to put on any type of protective gear to protect themselves from motherfucking bombs.
Yeah.
So listening to it just kind of hit me oh shit, that shit is not normal. But it's so normal when you live through it.
Yeah, when it's every day for 6 months, you have to get used to it. There's no other option.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's crazy.
Man, I'm not even used to random fireworks in my neighborhood. And I'm just what was that? I can't imagine and like you said, okay, this is happening. Okay, back to work, you guys. No one murdered us today. Cool.
Yep.
The kicker and going tying that back into the mental health bit is that. So Gina, think about it like this. So we experienced that, right? And some other people experience way worse, actual combat and fighting every day and getting their leg blow off or have fake eyes and shit. You know what I'm saying? People experience all types of shit like that. And then, Meg, they drop us back off in the world and say, okay, be normal, go vote, do this, do that, and don't commit crimes and don't beat your wife and don't yell at anybody or don't do all these things that set you off. And I'm not justifying it. I'm saying that you gotta realize our soldiers, our veterans is not normal. It's not okay. We just dropped back off in this world after we was taught to kill, fight. And then it's live like Gina.
Yep. And I think one of the biggest things that I've taken out of that is there's a stigma in the military that you don't have PTSD unless you've seen combat. Mm-hmm. So many people come back from overseas. And like myself, I have PTSD. I never saw combat, but fireworks scare the shit out of me, right? Mm-hmm. I just can't do it. And so, but there's so many other people that have gone through that and they are expected to live every day pretending like they're okay. And it's not okay. Like you said, Phoenix, it's not okay. And so I think one of the best things to do is just be empathetic with those people. most of them might want to talk about it at some point. And, you know, that's when people need to step up and listen. But it was definitely an experience. I mean, there were a lot of good times mixed in with that, but that was like a constant background noise.
No, you're absolutely right. I was going to say that, and it's crazy because we spoke a little bit before the show and having a conversation with you now. I just feel like a instant connection. So with Gina, just to add to what she was saying, it was some good times. Like, it's something about veterans where we interact. It's like an instant, like, oh shit, like I like her, or I like him, or this is my homie, or I don't like him because they're so similar to me. But if something happened to him, I'm a ride for that person.
It's a family. Yeah, for sure. There's something about shared experiences, but
yeah, that's intense. I was going to ask, I wanted to go back to kind of the breakdown that you had at the NSA and how it wasn't until that point that you were introduced to that therapist. In your opinion, like, what support do you feel you should have had previous to that breakdown, perhaps to have prevented the breakdown?
That's a good question. I do not have a solid answer for you, and here's why. The Marine Corps, and I'm sure other services as well, they try to mitigate these things. They have what we call Mando Fun Days, which is the company has like a budget, and once a month they get the Marines and their family all together. And there might be like a bouncy house for the kids or something. And they have like, they grill out or something. And it's like time for you to relax outside of work. But it's outside of work and you're expected to attend because you're a Marine 24/7, right? And like, your free time is given, not necessarily earned, you know, like you are allowed free.
It's not on your watch.
Yeah, exactly. And so, like, they do these Mando Fun Days. They do, the suicide awareness training, which I still really don't like that title. And they do a bunch of these other things, so you can tell that they're kind of trying, but it's the culture itself of being in the military that really needs to change. And it is changing. It is getting there. It could probably go faster.
Hold on. So I gotta chime in because so let me play devil's advocate, right?
Okay.
I agree. But then again, I gotta say, you know, with the military being what it is, the military to defend and protect, right? We have to think that we have to be armored. We have to be shelled. We have to be these like no bullshit type of individuals. So that in alone is going to cause individuals to have some type of mental health issues because we have to cut off that emotional side. We have to cut off that compassion. We have empathy, but not that much empathy because we still have to keep fighting. You understand what I'm saying? So it's a different type of mentality. I think you said it, the mindset. But we can't shy away from that mindset because that's what makes us the best in the world. If we start to be softened and not have that type of mentality, then we'd be like everybody else. And that's not us. That's not what our founding fathers built us to be. You know what I'm saying? That's not what Washington was.
I'll have it back here. So I get where you're coming from because I've heard that before. But I think people who can serve with empathy deserve to lead, right? Like back from the beginning. But I really think that, yes, we have to fight. We have to kill. I mean, the Marine Corps has a phrase where we go, kill, kill, kill. And we all scream it.
That's what we run the cadence, right? The cadence. Yeah, we got that too. Let's get it. Kill, kill, kill. That's give me goosebumps.
Yeah. I think there's a time and a place for everything. And so recognizing the time where you are all gung-ho, your motto is fuck, you're ready to go. I mean, that time should be separate from the time that you should be taking for your own mental wellness, because you can only serve on the battlefield as long as you are mentally fit. If you are not mentally fit, which a lot of people struggle with even maintaining that mental fitness, I mean, that's going to have impacts. And I think one of the other things too, that I'd like to bring up is James Mattis, Commandant of the Marine Corps, right? And he did a whole lot of other stuff in his civilian work. But we all call him Mad Dog Mattis in the Marine Corps. we all revere him like he's God, almost. He's great. But he completely changed the rules of engagement for our battles overseas recently, since like the 1990s and on. And one of the things that Marines go through is a cultural training before they deploy. So now you take this cultural training, you learn what it is to be a part of Iraqi or Afghani culture before you deploy, and you learn certain phrases that these people might use to greet each other. And it's all about respecting their boundaries. And so even with that, yes, we're all fight, 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 kill, 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 but you have to know when to turn that switch on and off. And I think that's where mental health comes in, is when that switch is off, that's when we need to step in and take care of our own so that we can build ourselves back up so that we're ready to go when that switch goes back on.
Yeah.
And absolutely. And I totally agree. And in the Army, we had the cultural awareness training as well. That's mandatory for all soldiers. Don't depend, like, it doesn't matter of rank. Everybody has to go through that training before they deploy. But touching back on the empathy part, and I think the military is trying to push that, like I said earlier, with the reintegration training, making sure that soldiers come back and say, hey, you know what? Go through this checklist of training. Go if you experience any type of this type of trauma or that type of trauma, these symptoms, here go your resources. But at the same time, Meg, I do understand what you're saying. Like, we need to turn it on and turn it off. I do feel like the military is starting to step up and trying to apply that and understanding that, especially being in 2021.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that I was hearing from you, Meg, was you were saying mental fitness, and that was giving me the imagery of an athlete. Like, an athlete isn't constantly on the field or constantly on the track or what have you. Like, if you have a long distance runner who is just constantly running, their body's just going to break down. Like, humans are not made for that. So they need to have those rest days. They need to have the days where they're repairing their muscles and they're taking care of that. Or else they're not going to be able to do the job that they need to do. And that's what I'm hearing from you on the other side of that. The mental health side is, yes, you're going to be running. You're going to be facing these things. You have to be numb sometimes. But if you don't allow your mind to rest and to heal, you're going to break down a whole lot faster.
There's another good saying that I like, which is feel your feelings. If you keep the feelings all stuck inside, right, and you don't pay attention to them, they're going to boil over. And so it's, taking what you've experienced, like taking fire, taking IDF impact every single day, right? When you get back, and that's really hard for service members to do when they first get back, because you're almost in denial that it happened. You're glad to be back. You're like, yes, I want to be normal again. Please give me normal life. And then we go out and stuff our faces full of delicious Chipotle food or something, we're like, oh, I'm so glad to, have all of this. It's awesome stuff. But it is really hard. Nobody wants to think about that when they first get back. But I think that's when, maybe every few months, just a reminder, hey, if you're experiencing any of these feelings, any of these symptoms, bring them up, you can go to these resources without letting anyone else in your command know. That's another key, because a lot of people are afraid that they're going to be treated differently if their peers, find out that they've gone to therapy or taken care of their mental health in any way. And so a lot of the resources that they're starting to show now are, these are maybe off base resources, or maybe it's on a different part of base where nobody else is, so there's a lot of options. But it is definitely very interesting having that perspective now versus when I first enlisted, when I was like, yeah, it's fine, I'll deploy, it'll be great. And now I'm like, it was great, but now I understand so much more,
Yeah, it's like, it was great with an asterisk.
Yes. Yep.
Absolutely.
So, Meg, what would you say to the 16, 17-year-old Megs that thinking about joining the military?
I would tell them every person makes a difference, especially if you are a woman or other sexual orientation, right? Nothing against men, but I mean, we need more representation in the military. I think everyone can have a positive impact, but don't lose yourself. Don't become what everyone else is just because you want to fit in, because you want to be accepted. Stand up for yourself when you need to, and let others know how you really are doing and who you really are. Don't be afraid to show that.
And I think that's good advice for people in general. I'm going to cheers to that, because like I think that's just blanket good advice for, especially for 16 and 17-year-olds. I could use that.
Could have used that
too. For real.
So, Meg, what are you doing now to maintain your mental health now that you're out of the military?
Yeah. Well, first getting out of the military was exciting because I was like, I'm finally free, you know? It was really, really fun. But then it started to settle in, right? Once I had gotten out, that I wasn't in anymore. And when you first get out, they make you go through like a week-long course where you have to learn how to be a civilian again. I forget what the course is named because I don't think I paid attention very much. But
yeah, I forgot what that was.
Yeah, I forgot what that was too.
Was it TAPS?
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah.
They make you go through this course called TAPS, and they're like, this is how you write a resume. This is how you apply for a job. And it's like really dry, but I mean, it's useful to a certain extent, because they can never fully prepare you for civilian life after the military. And I think that was one of the things I noticed first. So I moved to Washington State after I got out. So I was stationed in Maryland, right? And I did my deployment and I came back to Maryland, and then I got out and moved to Washington State. While I was enlisted, I was going to school full time as well, and I got a degree in environmental science. So I got a job as a park ranger at the Ballard Locks in Seattle, which is one of the only lock and dam systems in the world that goes from saltwater to freshwater, which is really cool. We could totally talk about that sometime as well.
Love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. But as I was there, I had moved to Washington with a person who is now my ex. And, you know, we were trying it out, but we didn't have any friends. We didn't have any family who lived there, which is probably the worst thing you can do when you first get out of the military, because there's so much structure involved, right? You're with your friends every single day. Sometimes you live with them every single day, right? You're constantly seeing these people who are supporting you, who have been through the same things that you have, who understand you as a person. And then it's almost like a shock, right? Like a withdrawal. And you go off into the world to be your civilian self, and you realize that you're pretty alone, even though you can still call these people. It's not the same feeling, right, as being a part of this thing of everyday life. And so I really struggled with that for a bit. My partner and I at the time split up. And then I had started working for the state park service at that point in time as well. And then I had lost my job, and it was just a really bad time. But the Marine Corps came back for me. A friend called me from Minneapolis, and she was like, hey, you know, I know you've been going through a tough time. Would you want to move here? You can live with us. And she knows me. I don't take anything for free. I have to give something back. And she was like, you know, is this something you'd be interested in? And I was like, do you want me to just, you know, watch your kids? Because she had 4 kids. And she was like, you don't have to. And I was like, well, I'll do that. And then, so it was our arrangement, right? And so I was taking care of her kids, and then I got to live with her for a little bit, find a job in Minnesota. And it was really good to be back with that Marine connection again, right? And and that just goes to show in the service, you know, we're always there for each other, and you're a part of it. And that showed me that it continues through life, not just when you leave. So that was really cool.
Awesome. But Meg, I heard some I would like to touch on. So you said when you moved to Washington, you moved with your partner. Was your partner in the military as well?
Yes. He was stationed mostly in Hawaii, though. So we had a long distance relationship for quite a while.
Oh, got you. Okay. Because I didn't know, because you said when you left the military, you didn't have like that support and those connections, but then you moved to Washington. I didn't know if if that person was in the military and it just couldn't relate to the things that you've been through, experience.
Oh, yeah, no, good distinction. No, he was in as well. We were in separate units the entire time though. So it just didn't work out,
No, got it. Yeah. Things like that happen.
Yeah, especially with, I would imagine, two people going through like the reintegration and not having the support of the friends and the family and the people that you were used to being around, with your squads and stuff like that. That's really intense. I mean, moving across the country with a partner is a lot anyway.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of change all at once. But I really feel like I learned a lot from that moment as well. My life has been all about learning, right? So that's one of the things I like to tell people is I'm a lifelong learner, and I will continue learning. But yeah,
I love that. So can you tell us what is on your plate that you're learning next? What's happening in the current life of Meg?
Yeah. So this year was very interesting for me. I was working for a company called Fluid Interiors up until about, I think it was like middle of this summer. There was a lot of micromanagement going on, which is not my style. And so I got to the point where I was like, is this really what I want to do for the rest of forever? And I decided it wasn't what I wanted to do. So I quit that job and I didn't have another one lined up, which is interesting because it's Corona times too, right? So that was a little funky. But I went out on a whim and I was like, so ever since I was like 16 or 17, I've always wanted to write, be a journalist or do some writing or things like that. And so I was like, I'm going to try freelancing for a bit. I have this much funds that could hold me through this time frame. And I was like, and I'm going to make it work through that time frame. And if it continues to work, great. And so I actually got started on that. And so I've been writing a couple of things. I have been a dungeon master in the past. I love me some D&D.
What the fuck is D&D? Can you go over that?
Oh, yes.
I don't know what the fuck that is. I said that like, yo, she has D&D master, but what the fuck is that?
So have you ever heard like of tabletop games or RPGs, role-playing games, things like that?
I know role playing, but I don't think it's like
wrong kind of role playing.
Yeah.
This is the PG version.
Yeah, this is.
I don't know PG role playing. I never played that one.
Have you ever watched Stranger Things?
No, my son is that shit, but nah, never. Yeah, that's some sci-fi shit, right?
You gotta watch Stranger Things. It's great. But it's basically all right. Very brief. I put a map on the table that I can have erasable markers with, and I draw out like a battlefield, right? So it's kind of militaristic in there, and everyone picks a player.
Hold on, this is a modern day map?
Oh, no. Well, this could be anything that you create. It's like sort of in your imagination, but you have characters.
So this is a map that you created. Is a map that you created.
Yes, comes out of my head.
Yeah.
And people have little people that they put on the table, and you could be like a half orc, or you could be like a half dragon, or a human, or an elf.
So do you make these people up as well in your head, or like?
No, these are my players make those up. So I sit at the table, and I have like 4 or 5 friends who are here for a session, which is what we call it. And they each have a character that they're like really excited about. They're like, I'm a half orc from, the village of Barag, here to slay the evil elves of whatever, right? And they'll like get really into it.
Do you dress up as well?
I have done that in the past, but not recently.
Awesome.
It's fun. I did have a guy, the first time I met him, he's a friend through other friends. He showed up and he had like elf ears on, which is really funny. I was like, dude, those are pretty cool.
I can see him. In my head. I created an imagery. He have elf ears and he have a black cape.
Yeah. It's really fun though. I mean, like you create a scenario and it's like a living story. And so say there's like a princess in a dungeon, right? Very basic, generic. the players have to figure out how they're going to get into that dungeon. They have to fight the bad guys. They have to,
They interactive, or is all words?
No, this is all words. So
over the table,
you have like little figures that you put on the map in the middle of the table, and you move them. And so sometimes, you'll lose a player. Maybe they don't make it through a fight. And so sometimes they might have to create a new one.
Is it all improv?
Yeah, pretty much. So sometimes the dungeon master, the DM, which is what I usually do, I usually have a set of notes, right? Which I can refer to at any point in time, how I think the story is going to go. The story never goes the way you think it's going to go. So, but it's all about, getting from point A to point B. Have you completed the task? And then that's the game.
It reminds me of if you think about, I've always thought about Dungeons and Dragons. Like, if you thought about Lord of the Rings, Phoenix, tell me you've seen Lord of the Rings.
I heard about it.
Don't kill me.
Oh my God.
I heard about it. Like, a lot of people talk about it. I heard about it a lot.
I'm going to have to give you some homework to enter the nerddom so you can
See, I like Harry Potter and shit too. So that's
yeah. There's D&D for Harry Potter.
Oh no, I'm not into that. I just asked.
You might be into that.
Okay.
No, but that Dungeons and Dragons shit sound cool because I got a crazy imagination too.
Yeah, it's
fun.
I'll be
like,
we need to get you out here to play, Phoenix. You would have.
I want to play. I'm gonna be Simon. I'm gonna have like a AK. I could be Simon with AK.
Do it, yeah, sure.
Or my name had to be like Lord Phoenix from Dracula.
There you go.
Those are both good.
Perfect. Oh, that was a good little tangent there into the D&D. But yeah, so you're doing the writing, you're doing the you have been doing the D&Ding. I imagine the Corona situation kind of put a bit of a wrench in that.
Yep, I haven't done a whole lot since then, but I have been writing a lot of content. So I've been writing some more, I call them, they're called one-shots, which is just like single games, like you're going to do it in a couple of hours, and then that's it sort of thing. So I've been writing some of those. Those have been really good. And I recently started contracting with another company doing some documentation work. But I've really been trying out that freelance stuff, writing some articles on various platforms and seeing where it goes. The thing that's been really exciting is my sister, when I first told her that I was doing this, she was like, you do realize that everything you just told me you want to do is what 16-year-old you talked about in our bunk beds, right? And I was like, oh shit, that's right. So I feel like I've come full circle, like I'm back to what I actually want to try doing. And if it doesn't work out, I'll go on to the next thing. But
yeah.
Oh my God. Yo, Meg, cheers to that. Can we do a cheers? Cheers to living your fucking passion. That's what you cheers.
Absolutely. I like that. Cheers a lot.
Yo, Meg, that's what I just heard. I heard you just say, now that it's funny, right? Sometimes when you put in a position where you like, fuck, I lost my job, I don't have anything to do, you could think two ways. You could think like, damn, I'm gonna be a fucking bum. Oh my God, I'm gonna be homeless. What I'm gonna do, and just sit there until that actually happens. Or you could say, wow, I always wanted to write, and I love Dungeons and Dragons, so fuck it, I just used to be a master. I'm gonna just do that. And you can actually do that and make money from it. You can monetize it. So I tell people all the time.
It's amazing what you can write. People will pay you for it. And they're like, oh my God, I love this. And you're like, great, I'll do it some more.
And as life coaches, Gina and I, that's what we tell people all the time is like, yo, listen, what is your passion? No, don't think about what's the job and think about passion with career. No, what's the passion first? Think about the passion. Oh, you found the passion? Now think about how you can monetize that passion. You can't jump from step A to step Z. You got to find step A, and step A is like, what do you love? Go back to that kid. Go back to that person to say, when I grow up, I want to be, that's your passion. Then go from there. So I love that, Meg, really.
What I love too is that, when you started out speaking with us, you were talking about the 16, 17-year-old Meg and how you kind of weren't sure what you wanted to do. So you did go into the military, and you said that you really gained an understanding of yourself and who you were and what you wanted from life. And it sounds like that really did build to this moment for you to be able to continue to pursue that passion and really say like, no, this is what I want to do and I'm not going to ignore it and I'm going to go for it. And I can tell like, you know, you're super happy doing it and you seem like you're enjoying it. And also for the listeners, for the watchers, she's really good at it. I've read her articles. She's an amazing writer. So please check out the link that we have linked below. Check out some of her articles. She's absolutely amazing.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes. I have as well. What's the one that it was like food war in the kitchen or refrigerator war?
Yes.
With the fruit. Fridge fight. Yeah. I like that.
Some Romeo and Juliet with that, but it came back. And if you've ever, I can't give away the end, but the end has something to do with a remoulade, and the entire poem breaks up to what is actually in a remoulade, right? So I don't know. It's fun.
That's my favorite one. You got to find out what's in the remoulade. But this is, I guess this that time, right, Gina? We got to wrap it up.
Yeah, Meg, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. And it's Phoenix's favorite part of the show.
It is my favorite part of the show. Meg, this is our thing of the week. During our thing of the week, this is where we provide our viewers, audience, listeners with something to carry to the following week to they listen and see us again. So my thing of the week is this. My thing of the week is be careful of the people you cut off. What do I mean? More times than not, especially as you get older, you start to understand yourself more and the things you like and the things you dislike. With that, you tend to cut people off. You tend to cut people off that's important to you, that has some type of value or shared experience with you. For some reason, you decide that this person is no longer valuable to you and you cut them off. The problem with that is, if that person died tomorrow, would you miss them? Would you even regret not having that person in your life anymore? So my message for the week is this. If you do decide to cut someone off that you're going to miss tomorrow, then you should rethink about cutting that person off. Don't let your emotions or one mistake ruin a true connection. Coach Phoenix, role model mindset. Coach Gina?
I love it. Yeah, I really love that idea of just take a beat. Just take a beat before you make big decisions like that, especially when it comes to other people in your life, because they might be more valuable and you might miss them down the road.
Absolutely.
So my thing of the week is, Meg, don't laugh at me if I mispronounce this, but it is the motto of the Marines, which is Semper Fidelis.
You got it right.
which is Latin for courage. So I challenge everybody who is listening to just focus on courage and to face every day this upcoming week with courage. If there's something that maybe you've been putting off because you're not quite sure about, or maybe there's a phone call that you need to make that you've been kind of afraid of making, just take that deep breath, focus on courage, and do it. Just do it. You got it. Focus on
do that
courage.
Shit like Nike, you heard?
Yeah. We're not sponsored by Nike.
We just like them.
Meg, again, thank you so much for being on our show, for sharing your perspective. It was an absolute blast talking with you. Phoenix?
Meg, thank you for your dynamic story. That was wonderful, man. You are a true hero. I appreciate you. Marines rock. Viewers, see you again next week. Subscribe. Tell a friend. Coach Gina, Coach Phoenix. Toast with the coaches. We out. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.